Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be doing a video touching on Pathfinder, mostly the tabletop RPG. Just have this up as a reference. So I'll kind of just dive right in. What is Pathfinder? Pathfinder is a tabletop role-playing game. Most people recognize role-playing game RPGs. Similar concept. One of the biggest differences is in most RPGs, you don't get to really make too many choices. You play the game as the game is telling you to play. You're bound by um, both the physics of the game and the narrative of the story. It's very rare you get to make a character completely from scratch and get to design its personality and everything else as you go. Pathfinder is one of those systems where when you make your character, you get to decide how they were brought up. You get to decide where they started from. Maybe your character was a farmer. Maybe he was a noble's son. But all these things are things that you get to decide before you even make your character. There's a lot of creativity that goes into this, as I said before. You get to design your character all the way from its stat points starting out within boundaries. You can go up or down, gain more points, get to decide what he's skilled at, what kind of fighting style they'll have, weapons, and you're not bound to a singular class. Although I do recommend sticking primarily one class all the way through, unless you have some sort of really cool idea that you can't accomplish otherwise. But when you start playing Pathfinder, there's three main things you're going to need. Character sheet, whether you have a web one like Path Builder, maybe a spreadsheet, there's plenty of them out there, or the paper copy. Paper copy, simple to find. Pathfinder character sheet on Google. There's a PDF, you can just download it straight away. Second thing you need is dice. The dice you can get you can buy it at a lot of different stores. You can order it online. There's also apps you can get on your phone. Last thing you'll need is reference material. There's always buying the core rulebook, stuff like that. But there's also apps out there as well, such as Path Builder. There's also Masterwork tools for Android. These will let you see the rules. You get the layout of the character classes, and you'll be able to build from there. It's also available online. There's the Archives of Nethys. It has, I believe, all Pathfinder content. You have the D20 FRD. When you're searching anything Pathfinder online, typically that'll pop up. That also includes third-party material, which is basically anything that wasn't written directly by the Paizo staff. Most of it's balanced out, but always refer to your DM before you start playing. I guess there's a fourth thing you will need: a group to play with. Nowadays it's getting to be a lot easier. So you have both people on Discords, you have different websites where you can find groups. There's a lot of online groups, there's physical groups. Just have to look around. But once it comes down to playing Pathfinder, you have to make a character. So when you're making a character, the first thing is get a general idea of what you want. Do you want to be a martial class like a fighter, a barbarian? Do you want to be maybe a divine class like a cleric or a druid? maybe an arcane class, sorcerer, or like a wizard. Your choices will ultimately come down to you and how you build your character, whether the character will work or whether it will fail. Typically there's some pretty good guidelines. Every class will, for the most part, tell you what it needs. So there's 6 attribute system. You have your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. There's a little analogy that a lot of people use to describe these stats. Strength is crushing a tomato. Dexterity, juggling a tomato. Constitution, eating a rotten tomato and being okay. Intelligence, knowing tomatoes are fruit. Wisdom, knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad. And charisma, convincing someone to buy your tomato fruit salad. All these stats are equally important when you look at the full scheme of things. Obviously, you're going to have some stats more important based off what your character is going to be doing. If your focus is melee combat, you're going to be looking at having a good constitution, good strength. If you're looking at shooting a bow and arrow, you're going to want dexterity. If your goal is to charm your enemies, talk your way out of every situation, you're going to want to be charismatic. If you want to be this ultimate powerhouse throwing fireballs, intelligence. And of course, wisdom being the ability to shake off any negative effects, knowing what you're doing, being wise. All these stats have a lot of meaning, and especially when you get down to specific classes. I'll be going over classes and stuff in other videos. Last thing to touch up on is, I guess, the stat line. Stats for every class, typically you're looking at a baseline of 10. 10 is average. No bonuses, no negatives. The reason why they have it this way is obviously sometimes people have something that makes them a little bit less than average. You have a bad leg, you'd have a lower dexterity. Let's say maybe you have trouble studying, lower end. All these stats will ultimately be deciding how strong your character is at certain things. The bonuses come into play every even number above 10. You have a 12 in strength, you gain a 1 to hit, 1 to damage for melee. You have a 9 or a 8 strength, you take a negative 1 to all those. Different races will have different bonuses. Humans, for instance, you could put a +2 anywhere you want. Humans are diverse, they come from different upbringings, they learn different things, whereas maybe if you were to play an elf, your dexterity would be better, your intelligence would be better, but they're more of a frail race. They don't have as much health, they get hurt easily. But as you play and learn, build your character, a lot of these stats will make more sense as you go. But I'm going to cut my video here, and I'll dive more into future videos. Thanks for listening.